Oh, we can totally start with that. Here, hang on. Hey, Coffee Compiler Club here today to talk about compilers and winter storms and rain and snow and sleet and whether the mail gets delivered. Or maybe about weirdness budget new compilers. Everyone's recorded. We're going to go on YouTube and whenever I get to it. Uh, and that's all I got for my starting spiel. Levo, you want to talk about weirdness budget? I'm all good with that.
Yeah, I saw it mentioned earlier this week, and I don't think I believe in the weirdness budget. Like, it doesn't seem to exist to me because this language is like Perl and APL, but maybe you guys can say they're not exactly mainstream anymore.
They're
But
not.
also,
I mean, the net count of users of
Sharp,
those
it
languages.
has like is not weird at all.
Okay, maybe you just lost
Yeah, I
sound
guess, but
for a second.
oh, I did.
You
I'll try
said
again
something
later.
earlier. Roll back your conversation in your head and replay from like 30 seconds ago.
Well, that's if my internet will play nice. But
Come on.
so I was saying that um, APL and Perl not exactly mainstream anymore
Right.
or ever.
Yes.
Perl, I guess, was very popular at a time, but C sharp, that's not weird at all, and it's not the most popular language. So every time I look at a language, I don't think the weirdness affects anything whatsoever. I don't really see any evidence of that.
A new language. The problem here is just like it's like you don't see the new languages that don't take off because they're too weird, and then they don't raise to your level of like I can see it now, interest.
Well,
So I think it's
well,
it's a real thing.
counterexample, Rust and Mozilla, that's a really freaking weird language in my opinion.
I'm sorry, Rust?
Yeah,
What does
ever
Mozilla
since
have to do
syntax,
with Rust?
they sponsored it earlier on and they helped make it popular.
Rust manages most, or I mean, Mozilla manages Rust. That's basically their thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. But I would claim Rust is not hugely weird. They look C-like, except they added a new thing. Like to go mainstream, you have to add a new thing that somebody else doesn't just beat you at. So they added a new thing. The first sort of mainstream attempt at static memory management. Dynamic ones, your GC, been around forever and a day, well entrenched. Here's static memory management, compile time. Kind of. I won't claim it's super easy to use. That's the broad broad consensus. I've never programmed in Rust, but on the other hand, no one else was doing it, and you could do something with it. And suddenly, the browser bugs that come around from lack of memory safety maybe got cleaned up. I understand the need for it.
Is there an example of a language that did poorly because it was just weird?
I
Haskell,
would claim every other language
Haskell.
that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, Haskell's a good example.
So Haskell is on others. It has to have a different word for weird because it has
Yeah, Haskell's
completely
like
different, not weird, but completely different. It's not weird.
the
You
very
can say.
older languages that explore different programming
Yeah.
paradigms in my head don't fall into this category. They are weird in some sense, but they're actually exploring a part of the universe that should be explored. And there is some subset of people who love functional programming
Yeah.
and they live in it. And so Derek Weeby is not here, but he's one of those guys. He's a closure dude. I guess Jane Street and OCaml. Um, Functional languages are here to stay. They have a place in the world. They should be there. And I don't think they count as weird for being functional. Now you could ask, what's the syntax of a functional language that makes it syntax weird? But then you have to compare only amongst the domain of functional languages. So this would be Scala and I don't know, schemas dynamically typed, a statically typed functional. So Haskell, maybe ML, maybe OCaml. And are they considered weird amongst each other? I suspect they don't consider each other weird, just different. Whereas if you were to look at Perl, I claim it's, as scripting languages go, it it generally grew and morphed and never it is weird.
There is a
Right
kind of
only
overlap. Sorry. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, Lee will go.
Go.
Rights only language.
Yes,
Perl.
write-only language. I have certainly written my share of Perl. Been a while, back in the day. As a scripting language over, like, predates Bash, scripting language over SH. Your options were SH. I guess CSH was good. Bash was still not around yet, or in infancy.
I despise Bash. It is a horrible language.
For
Any
programming, then?
language,
Yeah.
yes.
So then,
I've seen so many bugs caused by Bash because when there's an error, Bash just keeps going by default.
yeah, right. It's all
So many
scripting
bugs are
languages.
caused
Yeah.
by that. No, most scripting languages don't do that. If I have an error in Python, raise exception, right? If I do
So
that in Lua, raise exception.
that would claim
Like,
Python has moved past a scripting language, but maybe not. Maybe it is. Yeah, okay, fine.
People
But
keep on mentioning fish.
Perl is definitely in
I
the
haven't tried it.
category.
yeah,
Uh,
it's like any in my opinion, any language that does not use exceptions or have something similar to exceptions like forced checking of errors is a terrible language. Because anything that like allows you to ignore the error is going people are going to ignore the error and then
Yeah,
bad stuff is going to
anything
happen.
breaks.
And then
Fourth.
also the other thing that I've had happen
How
with
do
Bash.
awk and sed deal with exceptions? Those are generally considered useful languages.
The set does a stops at each instruction, right? I don't know that you can back to back to back on set. I think awk stops too.
Yeah, but also like I was when I worked at Intercontinental Exchange, I there was a bug in a script. So when what the script would do is it would do rm-rf, the dir $ directory name slash
Right.
something $ other
Putting something
thing.
out. Yeah.
There was a case where those variables didn't get set because of a previous error. So it
That's
did
fine. It'll just use root.
rm-rf slash and deleted all the files on the server. And that was a production server. This is
But
this is my experience of why I would say this is one of the reasons I hate sentinels, and I always use like std optional in my code, like no empty string sentinel. That's dumb. Like that causes, directory
so
names
separate out
slash.
things here because I'll have an argument about sentinels. But the RM star of $ empty variable name sounds like a classic scripting bug.
Yes, but like Bash's design lanes you into this pathway.
Yeah,
Like
now back up for history. Where does Bash design come from? Well, it's an extension over SH. Where did SH come from? Well, it was just somebody typed some commands and typed them again and again and again. They said, wait a second, I'll just put them in a file and act as if I typed them all. These are all like incrementally grown things. So they have huge history. They can't change how their old history went. And there's a huge programming community that knows and deals with it. It's certainly not something you want to do large, complicated programming jobs in. But if you're doing things basically on production servers where you're just manipulating shit to get things set up to go, shell scripts are like de rigueur. They are the thing.
I am a personal believer that as much as I hate Python, anytime you're using Bash, you should be using Python if
Okay,
you can get
okay.
away with it.
Yeah, and back in the day, that same comment would have been said about Perl.
But they knew there were problems with Bash, which is why they made a third language. They had the
Not
.a
they.
files that had assembly in it, and they were like, "Oh, it's hard to work with assembly," so they wanted a scripting language. So they made the .b files to have Bash in it, and then they ran into these problems, so they decided, "Oh, we need a new structured language. Let's make .c files and have a proper language that gets compiled." And
I
C's turned out to be a
think
good
C
idea.
well predates Bash, but not SH. But yeah, you need the strong typing. Okay, no, that's fair. And your comment about using Python as a scripting tool is reasonable. I'm certain there's people that do that. That's okay. Just claiming before you wail on Bash too much, just know where it came from. It's
Oh,
like
I
saying,
know where it came from. I'm just
what,
like, this is old and this has
yeah,
problems. We should stop
what is
using
the
it for
one
99% of what we do.
what is the one superpower that COBOL has that no other language has?
Runs
It
on
was
really old
alive and
computers.
well in the 60s.
Yeah.
It was born first.
It was born first. Yes, no problem. So I have no problem claiming
It's
that
the
there's a better
eldest
Bash.
child and loved by the parents.
Uh-huh.
The job of Bash is to install another language or launch a Java or Python or C++
Right.
binary. That's
So
Bash's
Bash
job.
still has a place in the universe. I get a blank machine. I need to start installing shit. First thing I would do is whatever. I hope it has wget. It has something. It has curl. And then yeah, and then sudo apt get install C clang something
Yeah,
Python.
the job of Bash is to detect which operating system I'm on and then install something other than Bash.
Yeah, okay. But it has to ask you what to install. And then maybe you want Emacs or Vim or VI or you want 1,000 other things. So it lives on. I believe Bash has a place in the universe. It's fine.
I think Bash is great for like interactive use, but for scripting, it's terrible.
Yeah, maybe not for scripting on your production server where
I'd
do
just like to say,
apply.
I mean, I feel like I run bash commands a lot.
Yeah, me too. All the time.
I've got
I've been
a
here like,
Windows command file that I download and it configures my Windows development environment on a new machine. You can't do that in Python because it's not there to begin with.
yeah. I
Wait,
have my
Bash.
my setup for new machine is uh put a link, download, install Dropbox, link to my account. Inside Dropbox is everything already set up. So after the Dropbox gets downloading, and then it fucking takes a while, then I have my Emacs set up, and I have my IntelliJ default settings, and I have all these default setting things all set up.
Yeah, supposedly Guido spent a lot of time trying to get a default Python included in Windows XP, but never managed to convince Microsoft to ship his open source language with their operating system.
Interesting. It's because they couldn't hook money off of it.
I wonder if
I
anyone's
mean,
tried that since XP to try and get, 10 or 11 to ship with a default Python.
honestly,
Goes
Python is
there.
such a slow language. I can understand why they wouldn't want to include it. Like we do
Yeah.
actually have a better scripting language than Python.
Python does a super job. Just what you said earlier. Python as a scripting language is a super fine thing. And it's slow, and so the default behavior for people who code Python is call out to some fast C code when I need something. But as a command and control scripting language, hmm, there are other scripting languages. Python's a reasonable choice.
And
Okay.
XP had VB.net. No, wait, VB6, the VB6 scripting language, whatever that was, can't
Visual
remember.
Basic.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
probably it. They didn't want to compete with Visual Basic that was built in the operating
Oh, I
system.
bet you're
They
right.
were probably afraid that Python would kill Visual Basic if they
Yeah,
let it.
How long ago was
Yeah.
this?
they should have been right.
And there was a scripting one. You could just write a VB, you could write a VB script, whatever extension, run it, and off it ran.
Yeah, that
So
was
what
VB
what
was.
year was Python trying to get Microsoft to ship it? Because these are like old technologies.
Yeah, right. No, they're all technologies. But so is Microsoft
I
XP. I
mean,
heard
it was
XP there.
XP, so that's what, 2003?
Yeah, that's pretty, yeah, that's a while ago.
Yeah, it definitely would have been competing around then. Yeah. So speaking about slow languages, one of the things I noticed is pretty much every compiled language is like within like 10 times within each other. Like C is typically the fastest for a given problem, and
No, C++.
but hold on. But my main question is, most of the languages or other compiled languages, even if they're slow, they're still less than 10 times slower than like the C version or the ideal version. So it seems to me that if it's a compiled language, it's not really going to be, no one's going to have complaints about it being slow most of the time.
You get past, where was I headed here? If you make the effort of compiling, you have reduced the cost of what's going on in your system to the interaction between all the small parts. Whereas if your parts that you deal with are all giant heavyweight things, like your APL when you're doing giant matrix multiplies, the compiler gives you no benefit because it doesn't directly speed up the matrix multiply, and the interpreter is easier to deal with and do. So I think there is a thing that says if I have big heavyweight chunks I'm dealing with, I might as well interpret. This is the argument for Bash and Perl and the like. I'm moving whole file systems, I'm copying directories and unpacking shit and doing big individual steps. If I'm doing a billion small steps, then I want each little individual tiny step to be optimized next to its neighbor, and that's a compiler's job. So it kind of
If
depends
if
on your
we're
target there, yeah.
if we're talking about compiled languages, like there's really no reason to choose like to not choose your favorite because they're all like within the same magnitude of each other, or
There are plenty of reasons, but it's not performance. If I
I mean,
walk,
there are performance differences between
there
like
are right, but if
Go and
but Levo's got the point that if it's compiled, they're probably actually close to 2x of each other. And if I walk
yeah.
into a 50,000 person Java shop and I want to program in C, people are going to look at me funny, right? And if I walk into a 50,000 person strong C shop and I bring out my Java stuff, people are going to look at me funny. So you have a neighborhood, a community that is a very strong reason to pick one language over another. 2x performance difference doesn't usually matter. There are places where it does for sure, but it doesn't usually matter. So
Yeah, I don't even think 6x or 8x either, because I remember I
I
think
bet you
Swift was probably one of the slower ones, and that was like 6 or 8x slower than C, I think. I don't know.
really? Yeah, I mean, Swift's problem was garbage collection or ref counting.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
that, I don't know why they would be hugely slower, but ref counting can stack up. You don't optimize. Bet it's not so bad now. I bet you they optimize it a lot more now.
I just went to that the website that people always complain about, like the shootouts.
Oh, Debian language shootout?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
looked at
so
some.
it does a very specific, very narrow thing. If you understand how narrow it is, it's kind of useful.
I looked at some of the implementations, and I'm like, these are not even close to the same.
Yeah, yeah, right. Oh, absolutely. That's part of the deal. That's
oh
part of
yeah,
what you don't get out of it. It is not an
I
apples to apples comparison by any means.
I saw this like article where they're like, oh look, Zig is faster than C++, and I looked at the code, and
Yeah,
the Zig version was using a relaxed atomic, and the C++ was doing sequentially consistent atomics,
yeah, right.
and I'm
I
like,
lived through the Java performance wars, and there are all these complaints about my Java is faster than yours, or my C is faster than your Java, and the comparisons were just complete bullshit. Fine, you have to deal with that.
I like to view different languages based on what they're theoretically capable of, in which case C does lose to C++ because we have templates and we have strict aliasing. C doesn't. So
You mean
that's
for performance of some certain things? Like if I take off and say I'm going to go implement from scratch a distributed Bitcoin model, and I'm going to do it in Java, and you're going to do one in C, and you're going to have higher performance, and I'm going to get to the market a year sooner. So the market will social media, same issue, social networks, it will go to the first big winner, and you'll just lose. So the narrowness of the decision is what you're talking about is it has more performance if I'm ultimately looking for performance in a certain context. But that's
well,
not
I'm so,
the metric that's really exciting.
yeah,
There
What's
are
the
other interesting
fastest scripting
metrics.
language?
Sorry, Leo,
JavaScript.
say again.
What's the fastest scripting language, and is it close to compiled language?
Yeah.
Go, Go. I think Go is only useful as a scripting language. You wouldn't write a serious program in Go. Well, some people do, but that's their problem.
A bunch of people do.
No,
That's
no, Go is
Good
the
used in
language.
production for very big systems. I would say Go is also compiled, so that
It's
means it's not
compiled,
a
yeah.
scripting language.
No, you can be compiled in scripting.
Yeah, it compiles relatively quickly to a relative garbage, which is great competitor for Python or Bash. I think that's the space that Go really belongs in terms of competition.
No, we
Really?
run we run very big production systems in Go. Go is
Only
Okay.
in one
basically
company, and that's because it's pretty much has to be used in that company, and that doesn't really matter if it's used in one business.
Yeah.
I would say it languages are either compiled languages or they are scripting languages, and there's no like if a language is if the
But,
program is text, then it's a scripting language. If it's a binary, then it's
well,
A lot of Python is compiled nowadays.
let me restate what I heard you say, which I think there's some truth there. There is a user visible compile step, or there's not.
all right, right, user visible. So
Yeah.
if the input to the program, if I can go and be like, hey, run this text file, that's a scripting language. If
Yeah. You
I
So
say
you would
run
say
have
text
to
file.
TypeScript is not a script?
Well, JavaScript becomes a scripting language, despite the fact that under the hood it's compiled all to hell and gone. But it's definitely a scripting language. I wrote some text, I hit run, go, execute, whatever, and it ran. And oh, secretly the VM underneath me like started jitting shit and doing fun things. Okay, cool. But it felt like a scripting language.
But it
Yeah,
has to happen. It has to have an execution engine. So if it
Yeah.
happens
Well,
too
every
fast,
scripting language
if
has an
you
execution.
go, okay, but its go is fast under a 10, 50 milliseconds, and
Go
then run
has
it,
a
and what's
user visible build step. The output of that build step is optionally something I can run or an error.
Hmm.
And so I have to stop and look and inspect the output, decide I got a thing or got an error, and then I can go run it. This is
Yeah.
not what a scripting.
So I don't.
So at least what I mean when I say using Go as a scripting language, the Go tool has a command that is run that you can pipe code into standard in, and it will compile whatever you piped into standard in and then call main. Which means that I can put Go code in a file, put at the top of the file, shebang, go run, and then call that thing as an executable just like I would a bash script. So if I mark a file of Go code executable and put a shebang at the top.
Yes, Ben's putting something in the chat, which I claim I've seen before.
Yeah.
This is like the C
C
Which is
interpreter.
generally
is
considered
a
a very
scripting
weird thing
language.
to do. But I think they put that feature there just so that they could say this can be a scripting language if that's what you need it to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
My
acknowledge
point
it's
is
a
there
weird
is
thing
no
to do to start
definition of a
shebanging at the top of
scripting
a Go
language.
file.
I would argue that because
Wait. Ben's been trying to say something and he's been run over by Aaron 2 or 3 times, and I couldn't hear Ben, but I knew Aaron. Then Aaron finished. So the Ben go.
So my point is that C is a scripting language. There is a C interpreter.
Yeah.
So and my point to put it in there is that there is no definition of a scripting language. It used to be something that you could talk about, but now there's just no distinction.
Yeah, right. I think there's no distinction now. Yeah. And Aaron, no worries. It happens all the time. Everyone, we got people all over the world. Latency shit just happens. Okay. Ryan was saying something. I cut Ryan off, then Levo raised his hand.
I would say like if the language is like Go, with that example of Go, I would say that Go could be either used as a compiled language or a scripting language, maybe. But I would still lean towards the compiled language because that's still like doing a full compilation. It's not a JIT, it's doing a full compilation of the entire binary to machine code. So
Right.
because it's doing the whole program, I would say that that's still a compiled language. And then the other thing is like there obviously with like the C interpreter, like you could argue that okay, there's an interpreter for C, so therefore C can be used as a scripting language. And in that one case, yes, but like predominantly people use it as a compiled language. So I would still overall classify C
Classified
as
script.
compiled.
In my head, if there is a error that happens before it begins running, then there was a compile step, and it's not scripty. And if you edit, compile, and run, and the compile step had no errors, so it ran, then maybe it's scripty-ish. But if it compiles and fails and doesn't do anything, like
But
if I have if some condition that happens to not be true, space syntax error, else do something cool, and I run it, and it's a scripter, he comes to the condition, says it's false, it goes and runs something cool. And if he's a compiler, he says syntax error, I can't do this, even though the path the error is on is dead. And I think that's a difference, maybe. Okay, fine.
That's probably a spectrum, right? Because you could have a language that fails if you have dereferenced array at element 7, because the type system of that language can prove that the array had 6 elements.
Right.
And then all of the other languages compared to that language look dynamic.
Yeah, I went down this list of things in my head after a while, sometime even this year with some other folks. Let me go pull up Coffee Club. There it is. Yes, share, boom, boom, boom. Stupid pet tricks with languages here, right. What was I gonna do here?
I still want to say my C joke.
Oh no. Let me do, actually, this is probably better.
If you've got a C joke, I've got a prologue joke.
Okay, so
Yeah, so what Ben said about C as interpreted, I once ran TCC not with the dash run flag. I compiled a Hello World app and
yes,
ran it
yes,
faster than Node can print Hello World.
yes.
Is that considered?
That's because some compilers are faster than others. And the same as Java, right? The JIT's quick. Okay, so here's a stupid, random pet trick here. So I run this code here and it says, divide by 0. If I run this on an interpreter, half the time random says do it, half the time it says I'm going to skip it, and you get some errors. Or sometimes it prints or something, or doesn't. And the other one is if I run this on a compiler, does he tell me div by 0 and I fail you out every time? So is this well-defined code or is this a compile error? Is the language here well-defined? Or I want some error condition here. It doesn't have to be divided by 0, just pick an error. So there's the spectrum, that's discussion. So here it's trivial to prove there's an error, except that maybe it's never taken. So then there's this one. Okay, here the compiler comes along, dead code eliminates, throws the divide by 0 away because it's dead. Is this well-defined as a program or is it an error as a program? Like, never mind the implementation. Is this as a program?
There is a debate, basically. This is exactly the debate in the type theory. It's the debate between the carry types, so-called extrinsic types, and church types, so-called intrinsic types. It basically goes, do I first have a program, and then I attempt to type this program, and then I type this whether it's correct or not? Or do I first start with the types, and then I say, can I have a program that is going to be inhabiting this type or not? So you can reason about a program independently of whether it's typed or not, but only if you believe in the extrinsic typing or carry types. But if you believe in intrinsic typing or church types, then you say that a program that is not well typed is not even meaningful. And because people disagree without knowing this, they come from different angles. You have a lot of debates in static typing.
Right. So I was just going to step up, but I hear you. And so I'm going to throw out the last little bit, but I think your point is exactly spot on. Here, I make it more difficult for the compiler or the language to prove that it's a divide by 0. Then I hide, y as a function returning 0. And now can I prove, and is this a type error or not? And then, and is this one where I say true? And is this one where I say random? Is it a type error or not? And that's the continuum I was talking about. And then now, right, exactly. Okay, who put a giant? Oh, you dumped church types.
The difference between the Haskell and Clojure, for example. So church types are what is, for example, in Haskell. That's the intrinsic part of the semantics of the language. Without types, it would be even meaningless. And you have the meaning of the program at compile time. On the other hand, Clojure, you have the carry types or extrinsic types. They are not part of the language. The meaning of the Clojure program is not dependent on passing the type checker. You can run it without that, and you might still have errors afterward. So that's pretty much the difference. Versus extrinsic typing.
So my opinion might be a little weird. So the old version where you had if false and then divided by literal 0.
Yeah.
I think that should have been a type or a compile error, unless the if was like a compile time if. Then in that case, I think it should not.
Well, I use false. I mean, I use random as a stand-in for something the compiler cannot prove is false. Like replace random here with a read from the command line. But you might replace random here with a complicated function, which after the compiler does a bunch of inlining and a bunch of constant prop and all kind of optimization, actually proves it's false, so he knows the code is dead. So given that he knows the code is dead, it's not false, but it's some very complicated expression that computes false. Now, is that a syntax error?
See, my reasoning is that a user might be annoyed that there was no compiler error when it was false, when it was provably false, because they didn't intend it. And it might be like a long time since they introduced the error until they noticed it.
Yeah,
so
right.
that might be annoying.
Right. You have to get past the thing here. So here's another version of this thing. Let's see here. If Linux, whoops, Linux specific OS call, else if, Windows,
I mean, you've been talking
Windows
about that for AA for a
specific.
long time.
Yeah, this one, right? Else if, I don't fucking care, Darwin, da 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 da. So my point here is that if I have something that is specific on some platforms and not others, and it would be actually a syntax. There's no library call to link against. There's no spec for the Windows call on Linux, and there's no spec for the Linux call on Windows. But the text form is well specified. Is textually, I can, just parse it as a whatever, as a context-free grammar, and just parse the sucker and the compiler proves it's false, should I still error out despite the fact I have no semantic meaning for a Windows OS call on a Linux box?
See, that's why I mentioned constants or compile time if, because for this, I think it should always error because it's not really a compile time. And you like, there's a difference between compile time and not, because compile time, you don't really care about other OSs most of the time.
Well, I'm
But this is
asking if I have a trivially obvious piece of code here. I've done a textual substitution of, so if I do this one where it's not textual, but it's actually a value substitution, a bool here, see, for Windows, but it's all constants, can I constant fold this and declare that one, it's okay because the code is dead? So the C version is I just use a macro, and the macro wipes the code out textually. Then the C language never sees the text. Here I'm saying the language sees the text, but the compiler wipes it out, and therefore he doesn't care that he doesn't have a definition for it. And what is the fine line that you draw where you say it's okay and it's not okay?
Well,
It
I
comes down.
Line.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's personal preference.
Is it?
Both options are
Okay.
perfectly valid. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So if I make a language,
that's a design goal of your language.
Yeah. All right. So this comes down to my head, or what you just said. Personal preference turns into weirdness budget, kind of. It's
Yeah,
okay.
so-
I wrote it, and you hate it, so you don't use the language, or you love it, so you use the language.
See, I kind of
What
think that
happens-
there should be an error.
Okay, you're in the be an error. Ben says it's okay, but you're saying something else, Ben.
I was going to say, doesn't matter what you choose,
Okay.
essentially, because, well, what happens if, okay, you spot that it could be it can be folded away, delete code, dead code, awesome. If you can't, and you spot that there's a problem, well, you're going to maybe put in a throws, something like that.
Or
But what happens when
error.
somebody catches it further up? You've still got a well-defined program. You said many, many years ago that CPU vendors don't think in errors.
Yeah.
It's just a different state.
It's just a different
You're just
state,
in a
yes.
different state.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do when you get to that state? If you never get to the state, you never get to the state. But you still have to handle the state in some way,
Yeah.
because you may or may not be able to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Well, I'm in the zone
generally a
of,
believer
this is-
in screw tightening pragmas to say the default behavior should be chug forward, compile things, try and get something to run, because developers often have code bases in broken states,
Yeah.
but still want to learn something about the behavior of the system while you're in a broken state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at some point you might say, you know what? I'm gonna turn on for this entire module the no dead code pragma.
Yeah.
And now I have to go
Right.
clean up all the places where I have dead code because it won't run with the no dead code pragma
Right.
on.
But you're saying there is a version that says run with dead code. And I
I
totally
think the
go to
default
that
should be
zone.
run with dead code, run with inferred types, run with performance cliff, bad things happening. And then gradually you turn stuff down and say, okay, in this scope, no allocations. In scope, no dead code.
I could have
In
sworn
this
that
scope.
I think I heard a long time ago that Xcode didn't link functions that it didn't need to, and then people would get frustrated with Xcode because they would accidentally like not link things
Right.
and find out at runtime.
Yeah. You
So
find out. Right.
Yeah, I always felt like unless it's like a compile time, like if it should just be an error because if you can't link as a if it's just like a plain if
Yeah.
and it can't link to the function, it should probably tell you right away.
So my second code block there is how I handle that situation. I have a big complicated problem I'm solving. I know I have to handle this rare case. I don't want to handle it now. I want to get the main program working. I'll come around to handle the rare case, which I know I have to handle, but later. So I want to say something in the code that says, you know, deal with me. But and the plan is eventually I'll run into that test which triggers the, rare case and deal.
Okay, just with the XCOM example, there's a difference between what the program does when it's run and the discoverability of the errors within the code.
Yeah.
So the XCOM guys are just complaining that we didn't know about it before we deployed it. Yes, but what do you do in that situation then?
Oh, what do you do if well, okay. So the not what solution you're looking for is what Aaron just said is you do some tooling thing that forces all these pending, not yet done problems to surface. And then the thing that you just said, I have a situation and it busted, and what do I do? Now it's how you make your server deal. You have a server, it's supposed to survive crappy things underneath. I'm running Bitcoin, running smart contracts. People do stupid things in them all the time. I have a bug of implementation. They have a bug in their code, whatever. You'd like the server to be able to catch the error, throw something away and get back to a stable state. And that's a hard problem. Throw away some amount of pending badness and recover back to a known good state, and then carry on and go again. Well, web servers everywhere do this, right? Malformed URL, whatever. They throw a 404 at you and they carry on. That's a hard one too, because the recoverability is difficult. All right, we done with this one? Between scripting, fine line between scripting and compiling. Absolutely. And the other one is the fine line between when is a language syntactically correct or you throw a compile error in variations of dead code that get ever more complicated to prove that it's, dead or not.
It can always have the variations. What about if you don't execute the whole script at once? You load it, you
Yeah.
compile it a little bit, you optimize a little bit, then next a few hundred lines come along.
Well, scripting languages everywhere, including like JavaScript.
Yeah.
Load some, run some, load some, run some. Or I ran a bunch. Oh, JIT underneath, but I'm just running and loading. Oh, you have all this crappy code that you're hanging off somewhere in the text I haven't loaded yet. I don't care. Yeah. I think that's in my head that goes to what is a scripting language here. Okay, how do I make?
Yeah, it also to me goes to how good can your linting tools be?
Yeah, well, you're right. You have to
A
apply.
lot of people are using the compiler as a linting tool. There's some argument to be said. The compiler should be plowing ahead and trying to do its best to make forward progress always.
Yeah.
And if what you really want is linting to tell you which errors are possible, run a lint tool that tells you what errors are possible.
Wait, how's that different from the compiler? I mean, I use compiler as a syntax checker all the time.
Right, that's the question is, did we just conflate two things of the linter
Oh.
and the compiler? And we should say, as you're developing, run the compiler in your tight loop. And then before you push, run the linter to make sure it's actually like fine.
Well, that's to be compiling with
Actually,
a stronger, tighter definition of what is valid in the language.
I might be a weird one, but I have debug builds as like a loose set of warnings. I have a couple like critical ones being errors, but then I have release build that's a little bit more strict. And then I have a coverage that does builds on multiple compilers with the release errors. And then when I'm in mood, I'll do linters and static analysis. But most of the time I don't do that because I don't want to like fix it like little bugs. Like I just want to implement some detail.
I'm charging forward as fast as I can. There's some things that I know are important to fix right now, and things that I can always fix. I can fix them later. And if I keep getting interrupted by the little nits, I'll never get around to getting the big job done. So I want the little nits to go away for a little while, And best
Yeah,
effort by the compiler to deal and ignore and move on.
that's why I have the warnings. I mean, the bug builds looser than the release. But
Yeah.
as far as I know, I'm the only one that has 3 stages.
No, I used to do it all the time. But I knew other guys did too. I think that's a reasonably common operation. First thing first, make your life easy. Go fix your hard problem. Then come
Right.
back around and, oh, the company has the following rules about the quality of the code, including formatting and linting, and maybe you need a code review, and maybe you need to pass all these tests, but they're failing this important new feature test, and so I want to get the feature working. Then I come back around and make sure all the old things work, and they don't, so I have to fix something, and blah, 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 and around you go. But there's some layers there.
So I worked at a company that mostly had their code base in Golang and Python.
Yeah.
And we continuously found cases where we had Python code that didn't use an import, but did import the import and was costing us startup time and binary size, and there were costs to having unused
Right.
imports.
Right.
The Golang code, it's a compiler error if you have an unused import,
Oh, no.
which on the one hand, the binaries were cleaner and we almost never found something in production that had an unused import.
Yes.
And on the other hand, having to go back to the top of the file to comment out an import because you weren't using the import because you're in the middle of debugging something and you
Yeah.
commented out an entire function.
Right. Yeah, yes. I have like I hate that. I live that world a lot. And in particular, IntelliJ will tell me by default, I'm going to add this. I've said, I throw to do and move on. He says, oh, I don't know to do. Oh, I'll add it for you. Okay, here's to do. And then I replace the to do with working code. And he says, oh, you have an unused import. Another to do. Oh, let me throw the to do import back in. And in and out, in and out. And I'm like, why are you fucking bugging me here?
Well, and nowadays you can let the LLMs fix that.
Ah.
Keep the language strict and then let the LLMs do this kind of
What I
tedious
want,
job.
yes, I hear you. What I want out of IntelliJ is just to turn off the I'm going to warn you about unused imports until I'm actually settled and done. And now I'll come back through and say, okay, let's clean out all the trash. And this is your linting thing, Leo. Yes. Tell
Right.
IntelliJ, leave me alone about these.
So my question is, what is the way that you want to express that? A pragma that's in the code, a command line flag to your
No.
compiler.
No, I want it specifically. There's a certain set of imports that come and go and come and go and come and go. And I just want them, okay, for right now, leave it on and don't tell me that it's unused because 10 minutes later it's going to be used again. Right? And yeah, Ben's saying,
Man.
yeah, oh no, but Leo's saying, but yeah, I've done system headers where I've accidentally unincluded, had shadowed things. I pick up the wrong shadow. You get weird errors. You're like, oh my God, find this error. It takes forever. Oh, I forgot this pound include because I yanked it because it wasn't needed because it was or whatever. Fine. Jeez.
There's I think I don't remember if it was a pragma or how to say it, but in C and C++, you can say system header, and it will outright ignore errors, like in that header file, like stuff that's like a standard error. Like I know people think not returning a int at the end of
that's iSystem. Yeah.
yeah, so it
Leo,
gets
keep
weird.
talking, but I can't hardly understand Matt for your sound, and I didn't hear what you said directly. So, Leo,
Okay,
finish.
so yeah, it's just you get really weird errors. Like I know people think that you can't like you people think you can if you don't return a value at the end of a function, you'll get a compile error. That's not true. But even regular errors that are compile errors, you might not get it if you have the system header or pragma. Like you get weird results because you don't realize that you actually had an error. So I uncomment that in my standard library every once in a while, and just to make sure nothing's weird. Because otherwise, I get like a bunch of warnings, and I don't want that in that particular file. And there's no dash everything in Clang. I mean GCC. So yeah.
Morning. All right, Matt, what were you saying? Not saying. Okay. You're trying to fix sound, maybe. You're muted, Matt. No biggie. All right. We beat this one to death.
I got another one. So I heard one author say that compile flags should be anti-pattern and should never exist. So I don't know how people feel about debug and release having different warnings and errors. So I'm just kind of curious what
Certainly,
else you
Jonathan
do.
Blow used to say that you shouldn't have compiler flags, you should have constants.
The one I was thinking was Walter Bright. He definitely said that one.
I mean, I have this mode, Ben's saying too. It's a bunch of people say that. That is mode where I want to make forward progress in my development and ignore all the errors and whatever, and just get me as far as you can. And then I have a mode which is, I'm cleaning it up and go for production, and I want to test everything, and I want to have the code look pretty in my head, whatever that means. Get rid of the dead imports and all that.
This is just making me think that in my IDE, I should have it export an environment variable that tells the build system what level to compile things at.
Well, okay, so the other piece of that is I really like the effect of Java is that I don't need a separate binary output from the compiler for a debug versus release. I just have a class file and it's going to run, and that's fine. And that removing that step removes this giant pile of confusion of I have some code and I ran it in production and then it crashed and then I have no debug info, so I can't tell shit. Or I have some code and it's too slow, so I have to optimize and then I can't debug or whatever. Getting rid of that one, I think, is a big step. But that's very separate from the one that says I'm doing development and I want to make forward progress without language level syntax errors. I want the binary to be able to be both fast and debuggable, which I think that is a key thing I get out of Java that I don't get out of C. And because of that, sorry, that's not the key thing. The key thing is that because of that, I don't have to manage two different binaries and mix and match and confuse them, which recently enough, well, all my life, but recently enough had to deal with, and it's very nice not to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I always put tags on my object files in binary, so different builds have different outputs, and
When you
it
say
made my life much
tags, you
easier.
put tag on the name or a directory you put in, or what do you for tag?
On the actual object file name. So if I do like a GCC build, it will do dash GCC. If it's Clang, then dash Clang.
Clang, right.
And if there's an address sanitizer on, it'll also append dash asan.
Right.
And then whatever else, like I have a dash GUI because sometimes I just wanted to run headless just to run my test.
Oh.
So yeah, I have all sorts of
but
things.
These tags on the name, the file
name,
same
yes.
language semantics execution, but it runs at different performance and debuggable build layers like asan throwing address errors, or I can attach TDB or not or whatever. And you're doing it on the file name. I'm asking because I run into this from time to time. What's a good strategy? And I haven't done it on the file name. I usually do it on a directory. So there's a, project slash build slash debug, blah, 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 and build slash production slash blah, blah, blah. And then have the issue that I can't mix and match conveniently, or because it's not at the file level, when I mix and match by grabbing all the things in production plus the one file I need to debug, and I have he has the same name. And so you get a final linked executable file that has all production and one funny off-nick guy who's debuggable, but he doesn't have a name in him. So the actual end result binary doesn't tell you that this piece is slow and debuggable and the rest is fast or not or something. I'll have to revisit put a name on it. Might be a better answer.
I never thought about that. I just chose, hey, why not just put in the file name? And then I just did it because it was
Yeah,
simple
sure.
enough.
No. Exactly. My problem is what's somebody else doing? Oh, they put two different directories. I'll use two different directories. And then more thinking about it. 20 years later, somebody comes along and says, hey, I took this other way. There's another way. Wait. Fine. And Ben saying, new definition of scripting language, no debug build. Makes all of Java a scripting language. All of Java a scripting language. I'm not sure I'll buy that.
Oh, you know what? I do remember why I like the file names. It's because when I go into my build directory, I have all my binaries there.
Right. Instead of, I have /build/production or /build/debug, you would just have /build/ whatever your structure is, but within a directory, you would have main.debug or main-debug and main-production and main-this or that. And then any linker with a regex can pick out all of production or all of debug, but it's really obvious that you can pick and choose between the different parts. That's not a bad answer. Like I said, I'll have to think about that next time I'm in that zone.
Oh, just one
For
random.
AA, what were you planning around debug builds?
Oh, same as Java.
Just not a thing?
Yeah, not a thing. The JIT handles it all. That was, one of several goals is up and run, and then I can go attach with the debugger and get full debugability and
What about the
go
shebang thing
continue.
where I just pipe a string in and ask you to compile it and run it in memory without touching the file system?
Yeah. No, that was one thing I ate from the command line. I ate from the command line as a quoted string for compiling. I didn't do shebang, but I totally could do a shebang. Yeah. That one, yeah, that one's outside AA. That's the shell. You teach the shell that shebang
Well,
launches the
you have to teach
compiler
it
when
that
you
that
hit it.
line's a comment and to ignore it.
Yeah. But it's that, yeah, fine.
You know,
Yeah, that would do that. Yeah, any language I'm doing these days is all of them are going to have as many of the execute, go, run, fast, easy, cheap modes as possible.
okay, so here's the execute fast, cheap, weird one that Python does. Not only can you pipe Python, its Python script in as standard in, you can pipe it in a zip file.
Oh,
And it will
that's
run whatever is in
a
underscore underscore main underscore underscore dot py inside of your
right.
zip file.
He'll unzip and go. No, that's entirely fair. That's a good answer.
And they were like, in order to do this, we had to put zip into the standard library, but also that's helpful.
Zip's not big. I mean, if you look at any other large language standard libraries, there are many megabytes, hundred of stuff. And what is a zip going to be? It's going to be one, maybe. So yeah, absolutely. Throw a zip
Yeah.
in.
And at least from an operational standpoint, I have found that a file that starts shebang Python, tells you which Python version it is, and then has all of the code zipped inside of it is relatively easy to deploy because
Yeah.
it's a single file that's your
Single
whole app.
file. That's the zip magic. It's a single file. I did my development in all these directories because I needed the structure. When I go to run it, I just want a fucking
Yeah.
binary. Oh, my
It's a
binary
little weird
happens
in
to
that
be a
moment
zip
where you're
with
calling a
Python.
linker to pack your Python file for you, but it's useful.
That's hilarious, and I like it.
I mean, for AA, I was going
Linking
to have
Python so
the
that you get a single file. Yeah.
Yeah,
AA.
easy to distribute.
That fine. All right, zip for another form of your file structure.
I think I was thinking about is, are there any successful mainstream languages that have a poor standard library? Because the obvious one
Wait,
is C,
or
but uh, like a terrible standard library. Because I know C is one. PHP I think is has a bad standard library,
I
but
would
it's
claim
only
C
meant
does
for
not have
web.
a bad standard library.
Pardon?
By now, that's well understood. See, here's the deal. If it's popular, a bunch of people using it, they all get frustrated over the same things. So many people produce equivalent versions of hash tables and shit like that, and the better ones climb to the top, and now you have a standard library. So if you're
Okay, so
popular, you got a standard library.
I'm thinking PHP like in 2000 when everyone was using it, and it was really quite bad back then.
Well, these things can improve, and you might claim that here's been the JavaScript is bad, and Java might be better, but there is a standard library, and it's good enough to get jobs done, or people would add to it, or they'd move
Yeah,
off the language.
so that's why I said like because it's web, it was able to get away with it. But I don't know what languages got popular while having a bad
I
standard
think
library.
instead you have raised your expectations of what it means to be a good standard library.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's the right answer. Everyone should just raise their expectations of a standard library. The minimum requirement is you have to have whatever.
Yeah, because I'm still trying to figure out if like you have to have like a company or someone with a high reputation to get a language adopted. But like I don't really.
Minimum, you do have to have some amount of standard library these days. And Ben saying JavaScript is a bad standard library. Instead, I would say
Yeah.
It is a
Your own
fast,
choice.
non-standard library. You go to npm,
npm
get
is
your
its standard
2,000
library.
modules. No clear winners amongst them.
I still never understand why Node is in the back end, but people like it, I guess.
Well, I mean, there was a need. So somebody said, I'm going to fill the need. And so Node appears. Now, people used it because it was filling a need. And then is there a better way to do the same problem? Oh, surely there is. But you have to beat the competitor, and the competitor kept incrementally creeping forward. And suddenly, here it is. A lot of folks use it. Is there a better Node flavor in the universe? Sure. Is there a better Java flavor in the universe? Sure, somewhere out there. But it hasn't, Java kept creeping up, so it's still hard to beat.
I wonder if Java is like 10,000 times more popular, but we just hear about Node a lot because people just really enjoy talking about it.
I don't
I
think
don't
it's
know.
10,000 times. I thought Node and JS is very popular. I thought Node on JS was still quite popular. I mean, these are ratio numbers on the tenfold between one and not 10,000 fold. Somebody has to go ask the interwebs that one. That's an interwebs
I,
question.
I completely forgot that people like Node because it has a lot of like NPM. It has a lot of external libraries, but
Yeah,
a
it's the
lot
best named
are
library.
questionable. Yeah,
I claim it's not bad. It's a bad standard or something. It's not standard. But it has a vast libraries of things, and you can find whatever random crappy shit you want out of the Node libraries. Sort of like
I
random
wonder
Java,
if it is
Java libraries.
odd. I wonder if is odd was meant to be as a joke or a serious
What
dependency.
you mean is odd as a program? As this, I'm sure it exists in NPM.
Does
No, no,
someone have that in the standard library?
There's no standard on NPM.
yeah,
So
yeah,
people throw in shit.
like I don't know if that was a serious upload, thinking that people needed, or if it was a
Had
joke,
left,
but
whatever.
everyone was using is odd or maybe it was
What?
his number I'm thinking of, but
No,
yeah,
not is odd. Left pad or whatever. There's one of these that the guy says, "I take my code back because I hate you."
Yeah, I think
And
yeah,
left
then
yeah,
pad is the famous one.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the point I was making was anyone can pile in on npm. So therefore, as a standard, it's not very standardish. It is big, so you can find, but it's definitely bad in the sense that finding quality out of the book, like Java at least does some curation of what goes in. That means it's slower to get its things in, and there's your trade-off.
I suspect like there might be roughly 100, maybe less of npm and other packages that have like millions of users or stars, because
Oh,
it
you're
seems like
asking? Yeah, I have no. That one I have no idea.
it
No,
seems
well,
it seems like if people really like the thing, it gets. I mean, people something has to get really popular and really thoroughly tested before it explodes in popularity. Like I think both at the same time happens.
yeah,
Like something will be
yeah.
popular and it will be stress tested a lot, and then it will explode because it's been stress tested
You're
and
stress
works.
tested, and then it will pound include every other thing on the planet, and suddenly you have 3,000 modules, of which 10% are just crap that got accidentally included and aren't needed except they're crap. I don't know. I did the npm. I did my JavaScript, whatever you call it, salt mines for a year, and you had to run. You either ran the treadmill where you endlessly updated and your bugs constantly shifted in the libraries, or you nailed down a set of libraries which you had tolerable bugs, and you quit shifting it so you could get your own shit done. But then you still needed those tolerable bugs fixed, so you finally updated, and then everything was broken for the next 6 months while you treaded water until you found a new stable point. It was kind of suck.
I
I
kind
had a
of
nice GUI app that was, on your phone and mobile and interconnected with a database and all kinds of fun stuff. It was doing cool things, but development sucked.
I kind of wonder if it's a like a really fantastic idea for every team to have like one or two people, or preferably two, that really know how to like write every single thing in the code base like themselves. Because
Oh,
then you don't have to depend on junk. Because it feels to me
No,
that there's
right.
more time wasted on dependencies than writing it yourself.
Most
That was
people,
the argument I heard from one of the people who was doing high-speed trading in Pony. And he was like, we
Really?
never faced this problem of having to rewrite something because it wasn't performant enough. Because in Pony, nothing that you want to do is already written.
excellent. The same can be true of x86 assembly or anything like that.
He's like, we wrote nice, clean libraries because we didn't have time to write bulky libraries. We wrote a tiny little library that did the one thing we needed, and we did
Yes,
assumed
right,
there would be no other users.
right. You're writing for yourself. Yeah, no problem. There you go.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Anything else here?
Just to comment that I think that Go is the example I would look at for someone who's trying to decide how to fill out the standard library for their language.
Hmm.
I have found that you can get a really long way in building microservices in a corporate environment using only the Go standard library, and you don't find yourself pulling in these thousands of dependencies. Like Python always has huge numbers of not standard library dependencies. Java
Yeah.
always has huge numbers of not standard library dependencies.
I
But a lot of
find,
our Go is able to do things because
yeah.
it's HTML templating is already there and SQL database connectors are already there, and it's just cryptography is already there.
So some newer stuff. In the land of Java, but for the things I do, I hardly ever pull in libraries. When I look at somebody else, they always pull in butt tons of external libraries. And I have to stare at the things they pull in, and a lot of them just don't make any sense. Fine. I think there's a mindset involved. If you're Go, you're Google, and or Google's owning the library, and no one else is piling in with alternative Go libraries that have features that Google doesn't care about. So you're not typically writing Go and also needing whatever, some BLAS routines or some other external library.
But I think there's a
That
lot of
that
religious wars of there's two ways to solve this that are genuinely equally good.
yeah,
You can have two libraries that compete forever, but if you very quickly get into the standard library a solution,
yeah. Then that's it. You're done. Yeah.
Cliff, I was kind of wondering if there's a lot of dependencies at your workplace and if it has bitten bugs have bitten you because of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Hashgraph. So we've picked up Ethereum's open source code and then a bunch of extensions. And then I'm busy rewriting a bunch of things. And in that code base, the my standard Java file has 50 pound includes at the top. So, and I'm trying hard to be separable and clean and not bring in other things. I'm writing a fucking interpreter. It doesn't need everything else on the planet. You have to write the core bits. But 50 includes are sort of the common standard average here. It's like, geez. Um, and that, if I were to redo this thing from scratch, be just like those high frequency traders, I'd have a small, tight standard library. You would include it in one. That would be the only one you would include. And, you'd go to town and get it done.
See,
So,
there's no UI in that, so it seems to me it should not have so many.
no, it's no UI. So there's a lot of things in there that I could go down that they're like hardly worth mentioning. I could go down the line. But because they've done best practices, you can't extend, override, supersede, replace conveniently any of these things. So you have to make a new file that pound includes the prior guy and completely replaces the API with one that has some use to it or whatever. It's been a real pain in the neck, mostly because I can't go edit the upstream base Ethereum code. That's their own project. I would have
Ah,
to get a pull request put into them, which I'm not interested in. I really doubt they're interested in taking my code. So then I have a thing I get, and I have a stack frame thing that's intended to do a really low performance interpreter for a stack frame. I want a fast stack frame. I need a completely different layout and how you use the thing. But everything else starts from the stack frame and pulls a bunch of things out of it. And the stack frame's huge and has a bucket of a kitchen sink of shit in it. And so you have to pass one around. And then everything's done with these byte arrays, including things that should be arrays of ints or longs. They're all done as byte arrays, and they're different files. And then there's wrappers with byte arrays that assume that it's immutable or force it to be immutable, or take subsets and slice bits, or can't tell, so they have to copy, or they maybe copy, they don't copy, they do copy. Suddenly, there's like literally 24 classes associated with just managing pieces, parts of byte arrays. Um, On and on and on you go. And there's things that you expect, like do a crypto algorithm on this byte array. I expect that. I'm going to, write something and hand it to somebody else, and they're going to decrypt it, and we have a trust thing we're building. So that one is sort of a clean, well-defined spec. I'll grab and go. But a lot of these things are like, I don't know, somebody didn't know what they do. Here's a common pattern. I want to make a foo object. So I'll make a builder object. Then I'll say builder dot set a bunch of fields, and then I'll call build at the end, and that'll get me a foo object. So to make a foo, I had to make a builder object and just copy the things in the builder and out to the foo. I never needed a builder other than to get a foo object. Well, that can be stacked 3 and 4 layers deep, where I make builders to make builders to make builders to make builders to get a foo object out. It's just the most painful code in the planet. And of course, performance is miserable because you're out of bandwidth because you're allocating furiously for just crap things. You're just like, no reason. Okay, here we go. Hang on. So here is a standard guide. I want to look at this. So this is Ethereum code. That's got to be more than 50. Let me see here. What do I got here? Oh, okay. So it's about 50 pound includes for things. Let's look at my version of my interpreter. He's 55-ish pound includes. If I go group them now. So of the group, 25 are internal to the Ethereum folks. There's a couple gas calculation engines so they can do gas, a couple things for logging, a couple things for managing people's accounts, a couple things for managing byte arrays and subsets of byte arrays that might be called an address or a subset of money, Ethereum dollar things, or big integer, small, big integer things, 256 bit counts, bunch of them for operations, which are a bytecode execution, which why the hell the bytecode execution was a separate thing. Picked up from the Hashgraph folks would be another 24, including utilities to work with the Ethereum frames because no one cares. A bunch of things for error propagation, bunch more custom operations, bunch more side checking, bunch of extensions because you can't extend the base classes reasonably, so they add their extensions elsewhere.
And you intend to take most of that as is, not fork it and start trying to
No, yeah,
clean
I'm
it or
taking
inline
right,
it or
right. The Ethereum stuff I'm taking as is, no fork, and some of it's just sort of so unusable, but I have to call and hand it that I just treat like I have a black box. And I have to make one, but you've hidden how you make one. I can't make it myself. So I'm fucking cloning you. Then you have only getters and setters, but you have them all. So all private fields with public getters and setters, why there's no security there? So I just set things in. Now I have this widget that you need. I hand it off to you. And when it comes back, I throw it away. I'm rapidly approaching the point where I'm going to make a pull a thing up that I've cloned, clone it, and then set fields, pass it, pull it back. It's completely not how they intended their design to work, but they force the situation where you can't do anything reasonable and you can't do any extensions or modifications, and they've picked these very low performance patterns. And so, I mean, I'm already at 60% faster by sidestepping all their bad performance anti-patterns. And I have another 50, 60%. I'll be 2x faster without too much trouble, without any JIT. This is just running an interpreter that didn't have bullshit upon bullshit piled on. All right, I'm done whining.
And you think it's worth the time to clean up that interpretation before going down the JIT path because it'll be easier to see what you're doing, or
Yeah, no, absolutely. It kind of has to be done. There's a lot of complicated semantics in and around contract calls. So the moral equivalent here, there's no function calls. This contract calls that contract. There's no real function calls here. And then that contract calls another. And contracts are like atomic transactions. They can fail and stuff. So they have those have complicated semantics. Those semantics have to be brought into the compiler directly. find all the semantics. Well, there's a lot of them, and they're kind of spread around throughout the miles and miles of code. So I am heavily rewriting how you launch and redo contracts from inside the interpreter. So there's a top level, the initial contract the system knows, and when that contract exits, it's atomically added to the ledger or not. When I get inside this contract and I see another contract, it doesn't actually go back to the ledger unless the outer contract does. So I get room now to play with this contract. So I want to take all his semantics and inline them and have his semantics be, don't throw an error. A lot of errors thrown and catching, but do a test, true or false, keep the bits, throw the bits away, whatever you're going to do. So I have to have all those semantics inlined and visible. So that's what's going on. I mean, that piece of it's going on. The interpreter, the prior interpreter would stack and unstack on his stack. The interpreter is a stack. Byte arrays that were not known to be mutable or not most of the time. So he mostly made copies of tiny byte arrays. He either made an object that had a byte array pointer and a source and a length, but of course it's Java, the marking header and pad word. So about 6 words, 5 or 6 words, counting padding. So anywhere, let's assume compressed pointers. So something on the order of 32 to 48 bytes. Or array, which is only 10 bytes long or less, commonly, but wrapped in an object that has I'm the wrapper guy who has a pointer to the array. And you do all the math, and they're like, the wrappers were the same size as the array, and why do they have them copied or not? And of course, many of these things are made over and over and over again, so you actually kind of want to intern them. But then they have like semantics of like, I'm essentially a unique identifier that's 20 bytes long. 20 bytes. Come on. What happened to 16? And just be a UUID. So I'll make a thing that's got 2 longs and an int, and then intern it. And instead of allocating 100 billion of these things over the course of an hour run, there'll be hundreds of billions of these things allocated. I'll get a tiny fraction and then intern. It's like, okay.
My head is spinning.
Oh yeah, you should. It should be. That's correct. So I spent my first month and a half with my head spinning over that. Can't believe what I'm seeing, and also, what the hell's it doing? And in the end, it was, it wasn't as bad as we went on. Well, with LLVM and MLIR, and so got my head wrapped around it, and now I'm charging ahead and cleaning shit out and making things happen. But there's a lot of I suck in a lot of random crap code, and then I have to work around the best practices. You can't get at it, except where they did the other side, where they said, you can't make an object, the constructor's all private, but it has all its fields public. So you can mutate it to its heart content. And its lifetime for me is very different than the lifetime they're expecting. So I want to object pool these guys and not do whatever the hell they were doing. And so suddenly
Why do you think your lifetimes are so different than the ones they were expecting?
Oh, they had what do you call it? An open coded interpreter stack. A flat, there's a funny fancy word for this damn thing. So they would go into they have an outer while loop. The inner section says, I'm running a contract, and he has a while loop. He says bytecode, 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 bytecode. Oh, I'm going to start a new system contract. So I'm a continuation passing, I guess. So I take the current contract as it is, I pickle its state into a frame, and I exit. I go back to my outer while loop, and I see that I've picked up a new frame that's the nested contract, and I go into it, and I'm in the nested contract, and the outer contract has been CPS'd off to the side.
And the goal of
then I
that is
run the
just the
nested
stack
one.
doesn't get infinitely deep?
No, it does not.
Sounds like a trampoline.
Yeah, trampolines every single time. And there is a hard count of how many of these you can nest, which in any reasonably JITted system, you'll never overflow the hardware stack because the count of the software stack is too low. I mean, it's
So why do
totally
it?
generous, but you wouldn't overflow the hardware stack. So there's no need for a trampoline version here. And then, of course, I went to inline. So I've got it now where it does what you'd expect, where I start with a transaction or whatever contract to start, and he runs down and he gets a subcontract. Well, he nested on the Java stack and runs nested, 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 and then unwind, unwind, unwind. Way more performant in terms of hardware friendliness, but the real win right now is I'm just pulling off allocations furiously. So that nesting is me setting up for jitting down the road. the real gains right now are get rid of all the junky allocations that I can.
So, does the company still pull from upstream every?
Yeah, upstream's still changing periodically, and they're
Moving
mostly at a zone where they have to add features. Like I have these historical contracts on the blockchain that have happened and they are known and understood and everyone agrees they exist. And you want to be able to replay them exactly to prove to yourself that everyone agrees to the same thing. Well, that means you have to have the code involved to replay everything that happened before. So now you come along, I want to add a new widget feature, whatever the hell it is. I want to be, now these days it's post-quantum crypto. Assume quantum's coming along, it's going to break all your crypto strategies today. I need a new crypto strategy. So post-quantum crypto is coming along. So they add it, and whatever that means. And then Hedera has to support it so they can be compatible, cross-chain contract compatible. And the easy support is to, inherit and then look and see what you have to do to make it fit into the current model. So where I'm at now, I'm expecting to see new bytecodes, but none of the old ones to get like remapped or reshuffled. And I won't have too many different versions of an interpreter that I need to support. Um, so yeah, we're pulling from upstream, but I don't think we'll pull things that will break me.
Do they break you often?
And Lilo sounds like he's off getting coffee or something.
Does upstream break your code often?
No, but I haven't pulled recently either. I pulled a little while ago. So the big pull from Ethereum into Hashgraph as the company is somebody else's problem. That happens. I'm on a side branch. I think I pulled ahead of the main company just to see what would happen to me, and it was fine. The main company will pull and test, and then at some point, probably a couple months yet, I'll pass all the tests with where I'm at right now, and that'll be put in, and it should survive. And then it'll be somebody else's problem if they pull on my version of that code. It won't really be somebody else's problem, but it hasn't been bad. Like I said, I think the pieces I'm working on, they're kind of forced to be stable with because of history. So they'll extend, but they won't rewrite old stuff.
So this is a different topic. If no one has anything else.
Type erased functions.
Yes, I found a fast way to implement type erased functions.
When you say implement, so Java does type erasure. Is this the same thing as what you're talking about here?
I'm not sure how Java does it, but I beat the C++ libc++ standard function implementation.
Okay. So for Java, type erasure effectively means all generics go to void star polymorphism.
Yes, essentially. So like you have a function, you create a std function object, and it has like its type is like
Type smearing.
int or something, right? So you can store any object that can be called as if it was a function, whether it's a function or like a lambda or a class that declares operator function call.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a huge win. In a hot loop, I was able to beat by at most like maybe 30%, but it's still pretty considerable. It's more like 10% in most circumstances. So one of the things that like standard function does is that when you call the function, it checks if your function is null, right? And then if it's null, it throws an exception. I have eliminated that check completely by storing a function always unconditionally, a function pointer, that all it does is throw a bad function call. So when the function object is essentially in the null pointer state, it is actually initialized, but it is initialized to a function that just throws bad function call.
Gotcha.
So,
and then you're able to skip some testing somewhere.
Yeah, so now there's no branch, and it's in some cases it's up to 30% faster, and then in other cases it's more like 10%. But it depends.
The call, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like, well, I don't know. This sounds like a C++ optimization question. Like Java doesn't have function pointers. You have objects, but you can have the single lambda, single abstract method version, which the object has a v table as one entry in it that you know that that's your function you're going to call. But things like null pointers are optimized to hell and gone by Java, and the null pointer in the hot inner loop is almost always gets to be pulled out and never shows up in the hot inner loop. So I'd have to see the code you're looking at that you can't pull a null pointer and you skipped it by doing a thing. So the next piece of that one is after you pull a null pointer, the function target, if it's a single function target, the JIT will inline the one target.
Oh, I could show you.
SEC, you
Do you want
can't
me?
inline. Yeah, can you do it on the doc as a sample code as opposed to uh as
I mean,
opposed to reading it out of your GUI? It's hard for me to pick out like give an example code, pick a code block here and put some example code in. Because you want to say I have a lambda and I have a hot loop. This is while infinite. Call the lambda, like the obvious, tightest possible, fastest possible thing. And then somebody had a null check and you said, no, don't null check because it's not null.
okay. So this is the
Okay.
this would be C++. So this is how they do it, right? And then what I do, let me find it. So
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. What is standard forward? I probably don't want to know.
that is so if an argument has like an R value type, this doesn't really exist in Java because you are reference oriented. So it forwards the value category of the argument. So like if it's a temporary object, it passes the argument as the temporary instead of just as an L value.
Passing a lifetime argument, or is it actually choosing a different coding calling convention?
It's so like if I have an argument that came into my function as a temporary object,
Uh-huh.
and I use it inside my function, it's used as an L value, so I could like refer to it multiple times. But if you forward it to another function, then it like that means that it's treated as a temporary object in that function call as well. And so it will like take the value along with the call rather than making a copy.
Okay.
So like it will
Changing the
forward
lifetime.
yeah. So like by default, when an argument comes in as a temporary, if any additional uses don't like treat that as a temporary because it's like it has like a named L value, right? Because it's like it's been assigned a label. So you can refer to the same temporary the argument that came in as a temporary, the uses don't necessarily treat it as a temporary object. But if you forward it, then it is still treated as a temporary in the forwarded expression.
All right, write your alternative version.
Right. So in my version, I just directly call the function. So it looks very similar. There's some difference in how I've named it. So you can see that we have the same kind of return, and then I have my operator. I'm not const because I thought that was a bad API decision, but the way that this can work is that when I like initialize the object, let me find this here.
Like now it's time for God Bolt. Like where's your null pointer check? Could just be that you pull up.
There's none. So
yes.
Let me find my default constructor here.
But you made a function call where the hardware will null pointer check you, whether your software did or not.
Okay. So my
uncallable is just initialized in the constructor of the object to a default value.
Yeah. So here's what happens. So in the default constructor, you can see that there's something called null call implementer, and then I also implement the table. And then if I find null call impl here, you can see that this null call impl is just throw bad function call. So we're getting the same result here of throw bad function call, right?
Right.
But instead of checking at runtime if f is equal to null pointer, I just make sure that this function pointer is never null pointer, and when it's logically a null pointer,
Right. You
it's
call that
just
guy.
a pointer to a function that throws the bad function call.
So
So
your
this
setup said, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have one of two different functions, the original and the null throw bad or whatever. In one of your choices is now throw bad, and you just preset it based on the incoming call as being void or not.
Yep. So that's my implementation, and it's faster than the standard version. In fact, I finally fixed a bug, which now it's faster in every circumstance that I was able to measure. So yeah.
Okay. This all lands me in the zone of like C++ gives itself so much complexity that you get to fix some complexity for some other complexity because of some other complexity.
Well, anytime you have like a null check to a function pointer, you can do this, right? Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
implementing a compiler, like this doesn't have to be limited to C++. Any language that has function pointers, you could do this and be like, hey, a null function pointer is not actually a null value. It's actually this special pointer to a function, and that function is just a thing that throws null pointer.
Well, somewhere you tested that it was null and replaced it with the new value. And then you could move that test and replace with the new value away from the call site.
Well, it's like the default constructor, which normally would set the pointer to null because like it's not
Right.
an
So
actual function
you
pointer.
make an object and you put a pointer in it, and then you decided that I'm going to put the pointer to be null or not. And now your object's never null, and it has this pointer inside it. Well, the pointer inside is never null.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Somewhere in the world, somebody looked at it at the pointer and decided it was null and replaced it. And now I have a new thing, which is the version that doesn't have is known to not be null. Yeah, Java does all these kinds of things, but the expression here is very different in how you think about them. You certainly have people have I want to say I don't have a function pointer or I do, but because of the Java has the wrapper object, they have to say I have a null wrapper or not, and my test comes at a different place. But it is the same one null pointer check, but it does get optimized and it gets optimized, but it's done in a different place.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to the code here if you guys.
Yeah.
There's the functional header.
This is one of these fun things that you look at. It'd be fun to look at it on Godball and watch the null pointer check disappear or move away or whatever. That would be the
Yeah, sure. Let me do.
thing to do. And I'm not saying do it now. You bring it up next time. It's all fun. And then it can be replaced with polymorphism. Yeah, yeah. Same for Java. You get a V table out of it somewhere. Fine. All right. We can wind down. It was a fun conversation. I'm gonna go run to the grocery store and to the pharmacy and do my errands, and then I'll sit down and stare at message frames, which have private only constructors, and I have to fucking clone them in order to make another one. Pull them off of a thread pull so I can have this holder of 1,000 things that's not a stack frame anymore.
In the
I
meantime,
can-
both AA and simple are paused, I'm guessing.
It's because I've ran out of time with a bunch of things happened all at once. I'm back to work. Okay, work is good. I'm having fun. Money's good. I'm having fun. Lisa got total knee replacement. I'm still doing a lot of housework things because she's not mobile yet. She's more mobile. It's getting better. So that's just eats a lot of time.
Tell her the compiler club wishes her well.
Yeah, I'll tell her.
Oh,
I've been hacking simple,
Fast
slow
recovery.
weekends. I'm at a zone where I'm trying to get the auto import system to work. And along the way, I'm looking at slightly changing how I do constructors and CL inits so that they line up properly with sort of the auto import notions. And that's where I'm fiddling left and right there. And then we had a bunch of house stuff go bad over the last several weekends where I did emergency household weekend repairs. This one was the winter storm came, we weathered it okay, but we had water come into the pass-through between the garage and the house, and it's supposed to be an enclosed dry space. And it was coming up under the floor, and you go outside, and you're on a hill, it's a mountain on a hill, it's terraced. The terrace was holding water. It was a very prettily landscaped terrace. It was stacking up water. It didn't have proper drainage. So I added drainage to the terrace, and I put a caulk line of industrial strength, household watertight caulk glue underneath the house along the wall, along the edge where it was stacking up. And power went away, the thing drains, so no more water in the pass-through. That's all good. But that was like, you cannot have water in your house. You must immediately fix it. So that was an emergency. Go do this thing. And that was my weekend. There was something else the prior weekend as well. This is fine. So it's not on hold. It's moving slow. I want to get back to AA, and I want to finish up simple to the point where I can write a standard library and have it auto import with the auto include system going on here. So that is a thing I want to do. I have no good standard library, no good way to link against one right now, and my prior versions
By
are all
auto
just
include, you just mean by using a symbol, you've imported that symbol?
yeah.
How do you decide where to look for it?
Comes on the command line and the linker, the link command line.
Okay.
A class path in Java. You say dash class path, you give a path to, okay, same thing. You have to add a class path. The class path will include the standard library, probably by default if there's a default installation. If you're making the standard library or you have some other things, you would put in the class path.
Do you expect the sort of typical path there to be a directory for the standard library, a directory for your vendor dependencies, a directory for the source code you're working on right now?
Yeah, something like that. Except I would figure the standard library would eventually get auto set where it should be as part of installation, and the path would therefore just be picked up from as part of installation, and you would have to name it on the command line. So your command line wants to be, so my head is usability. Command line wants to say simple space, text file name, and the default is I'm going to find the standard library, compile, and run you as like a shell scripty thing, or simple space quoted text, some code, and it just runs. But it does a compile step and it can error. So it's statically typed.
Okay, I did actually have time to add the assembly there. So it's in the
You
doc.
just pulled assembly out. So foo1 and foo2. Foo1 does a null pointer check on throw bad function. This is the existing one. Gotcha. And jump keyword pointer di plus 24. Where's the call and return? It's doing a trampolines. It's just returning. Oh, it's just directly returning. So he's done a
It's doing a tail call.
tail
Yeah.
call. Yeah, fine. And then the other guy says, yeah, none of the above, tail call. Cool.
And
Well,
then you
set
can
to
see I also changed the address of the function pointer to the address of the thing. So there's no addition. Not sure if that matters.
I'm sorry. I was trying to figure what was getting set to 0 here. Why is there a 0?
That's a good.
Some hidden extra argument is getting set to 0, which is totally fine. I think because everyone's doing it, so it has to be there.
I'm not sure what that is actually. Let's see. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah. No worries. I was just your code says this.
Oh yeah. Okay, that I had to add.
I was
that
looking at
because
up here, but no, here. Yeah, fine.
yeah, I had to add this because for some reason Godbolt wasn't displaying the standard function version if I didn't add that statement. Like it like optimized it out.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Could have
It's
been.
like
But not Godbolt, of course. It'll be Clang or GCC or whoever. There's a lot of these things where the optimization is fragile, but everyone knows that, by God, if you just write a wrapper call, it has to completely disappear, for instance. There's a bunch of things like that in Java, too. If you write this kind of function, everyone knows it must just completely disappear. So we'll force it, and you can break the heuristic by screwing around with some extra code.
I think that's just a Godbolt bug because that shouldn't happen. But actually, maybe it's a compiler.
But I thought Godbolt was just going to forward you on to the other compiler. He's not compiling directly. He's saying,
Yeah, that's why I think it's a Godbolt bug because.
Like you should be able to reproduce this bug on the command line without Godbolt involved. Write your foo 1 and 2 without the X, and then on the command line, clang and just dash S and look at the code. That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be a Godbolt. I'd be surprised. But no biggie. I see the effect. That's interesting. I'm wondering if it pays off in a larger context where there's more room for the compiler to just optimize the way things. Actually, there's more room just for the hardware to get past the function call, the null check for the function call. Because a compare and branch like this, a rarely taken forward branch of a compare and jump, load compare jump. So this is a load compare jump. This is like a clock cycle on the x86.
Yeah, it's not very expensive. That's why I didn't get very much performance improvement, but it's measurable.
Yeah, no, I can see that it ought to be if this jump is really cheap, like it just jumps to an empty function that's foreign, so it didn't optimize an inline, returns immediately, then all your time is store a 0, load and compare, jump, register call to a return. Okay. And then this one is just that without the register call, without the jump, without the jump. And then, yeah, I can see that being a difference. It's clearly different. It's clearly got less code. It's always better, less code. All right. Fun stuff to go fiddle around. I don't know. I like playing with Godbolt for things. Someday I'll get simple on Godbolt. Okay. I'm going to call it. I think we hit a decent stop point. And say let's do this again next week.
See you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I think so.
Bye.
Next week.
Yeah.
Bye.